I would love to introduce our next guest, and I just think this topic is going to be one that you all want to hear. Her name is Dr. ElizabethPlourde, and she is just a wealth of knowledge. She is a clinical laboratory scientist with a background in cancer and DNA testing. Her work experience and research has provided her with the skills to compile the evidence and research for her groundbreaking documentation of the truth behind the damage created by wireless technology age. Oh my goodness gracious, I feel like this is just something that all of us need to know, regardless if we have children, with autism. So today, she is here. She's a unique healthcare advocate, and she's here to help us understand the safety of, and what the safe use is behind cell phones and electronics for our families, and especially our children. Until we met at dinner a few months back, I had no idea that we needed to be so concerned about all the electronics that are around us and that we've become dependent on. So today we're going to be talking about how wireless technologies impact children with autism. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I've been a medical researcher for 30 years, and my book on the electromagnetic radiation is my fourth book. And the hardest part about being a researcher is knowing the whole world doesn't know what I keep uncovering, that I feel like everybody's just got to know today in order to not only survive but thrive.
Well, Dr. Plourde, I feel that, we know how busy you are, and the fact that you're taking the time out and, after all your research, and I know you're in constant research mode to help our families, I just feel so honored. So thank you for that. And, how did you become aware that, this thing called EMF, and, maybe first let's say, what does EMF even stand for so people know?
It stands for electromagnetic field, and it's put out by everything that's electronic, including the old, safer refrigerators and things that we used to have before all this wireless age. But even just the electricity alone, what's been happening is that I'm a North American certified menopause practitioner, and my first book about women's hormones went around the world. So I've been consulting around the world for women with menopause for almost 20 years. And about 7 years ago, I started getting all these calls from the San Francisco Bay Area, all these women saying the exact same thing. I must be going into early menopause. I've got these headaches, and I can't sleep, and I'm so tired, and I'm so irritable. And they all said the same symptoms, and they said they must be going to early menopause, but they were only 40, 41, 42. And I have a 6-page health evaluation I have them fill out. And when I looked at one of them were in menopause. It was not hormonal. And so my research brain kicked in, and I talked to each one in depth. I wanted to find out why, and why this cluster in San Francisco. And the common denominator was the smart meter, the electrical smart meter, going on their residents within weeks or months of these symptoms. And then I started investigating the smart meters, and they are the exact same frequency as the microwave oven. Wow. And they are pulsing multiple times a minute, 24 hours a day. So we're in this constant radiation field because of just the smart meters on all the houses. And the San Francisco Bay Area got theirs about 3-4 years before we did here. I live in Southern California. And so this was really an awareness for us. And I started investigating what the electromagnetic radiation does to the body. And I'm so glad that I have such a foundation in biochemistry, because these radiations are impacting every cell of our body, every cell. And our tissues, our blood-brain barrier is being getting holes in it. It's becoming like a sieve, as well as our gut lining. And that's what's led to so many of the food allergies today, because the food can just leak into the blood, and then it's foreign, so the body makes antibodies. And so we have all these food allergies today that people didn't used to have.
And so how did you even, you talked about the San Francisco, but is that how you became aware that this was even a problem? Was that how it first started for you?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Well, I had known 10 years ago, I knew that if I walked into a Wi-Fi building, I would get dizzy, vertigo, nausea. I knew that. So I started buying some of the devices that have been sold on the market to help with electromagnetic radiation. I was not aware that they don't work, and it wasn't that bad until the smart meters went into our neighborhood. When the smart meters went into here in Southern California, by then a judge had ruled that they can't be mandatory. So we opted out, got our neighbors on both sides to opt out. So the closest meter was 100 feet across the street, 125 beyond our backyard. I thought it was fine. And in 4 days of it going in the neighborhood, I had a rash on my ankle, a week up my leg, and 30 days it was over my whole body. And I became allergic to every food, just that rapidly.
Wow.
And so then I started investigating all that. I went to 12 different doctors. Nobody could help me because I didn't associate it with the smart meters because they were so far away.
What can people do if they already have a smart meter?
In California, you can opt out. Some states allow you to opt out. Some states don't.
What if they've already put it in there?
You can have it removed. And the California judge ruled they have to replace it with the old safe analog meter that you had.
And so you just call
your utility company and tell them you want your old safe meter back. They do charge for the exchange, and they do charge $10, $20 a month, depending on the utility company. But they've now rolled out gas smart meters, and they're in the midst of rolling out water smart meters. And this combination of all three of those, putting out microwaves on our homes, the people in the Northeast, Michigan area, Illinois, they've had all three smart meters for years, and those people are very sick. By the time they find me for a health consult, they are very debilitated from the radiation.
So the ones you're talking about in California, they're for electric, right? Electricity?
Well, but since my problem, they've now rolled out gas, and they're in the middle of putting in the water. So.
Oh, wow. And so basically, some people may already have the gas smart meters and potentially the water, but they definitely most likely have the electric smart meters is what you're saying.
Yes, and they've been around long enough.
And will it help if somebody were to get rid of, let's say they were swap theirs out, but their neighbors don't, will that still help them in some way?
It depends on where the meter is, but also the technology that I've found that has allowed me to survive and stay in the same place without symptoms anymore is a biodot that strengthens your energy field, as well as we have a dot that can go on the meter that alters it to be a human-compatible radiation. So people who are in apartment houses who call because they can't sleep and their head hurts so bad, we have them get the dot on themselves. It's called a biodot, and then a dot on the smart meter, and they call back and say, I'm sleeping and my headaches are gone.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's definitely, at least there's something we can do about it, so I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about the EMF radiations from the cell phones? I mean, clearly I think we know the answer. You've kind of touched a little bit on this. But even like iPads, like I never thought about iPads before. You know, so many of our kids are living on their iPads. Does that cause harm to the human body?
Absolutely. The cell phones and iPads are about equivalent in power and toxicity today. I have people calling and asking for help because their skin all splits open on their fingers using the iPad. So it's very powerful, very toxic. And the newer phones, the iPhone 6s and 6S Plus, it's staggering, the amount of power. The FCC allows a power rating of up to 1.6 watts per kilogram. It's called SAR, specific absorption rate. It's how much your tissues absorb the radiation per body weight. And they allow 1.6 watts. We have pictures in our book, EMF Freedom, Solutions for the 21st Century Pollution, that show incredible damage from the radiation of only 200 milliwatts. And now these new phones are all right up to the limit of 1.6.
Wow. And you can put those dots, though, on the phones as well,
yes.
right?
Yes.
And does that make it go away, or does it like just kind of help it, or does it help it tremendously?
Tremendously. These dots actually alter the radiation to be human compatible. And so it's different than a lot of things on the market that I have a drawer full of them and they never worked. And with these, I was to the point I couldn't work. I couldn't be on a cell phone, couldn't be on a computer. I just itched and bled. My entire body itched and bled. And I could not go out anymore because I would feel everybody's cell phone like a knife in me. So go to a grocery store, 100 people, 100 knives in my body. It was just too painful. And with this, just wearing the biodot for 2 days, I was able to go back in public. And I hadn't been able to work in 4 months. And wearing that biodot and putting the dots on the computer and cell phone, I was able to go back to work in a week.
Wow. Oh, I love this. Okay. I mean, I love the fact that there's something that can be helpful. At least it's like it's not just a sad story and there's no happy ending, kind of thing.
Right.
And because the technology around us, there's only so much we can do because it's everywhere, everywhere you go. But I love that there's actually tools out there that can help us. Well, I know when we had dinner, you pointed out to us that that most of us do not realize that we are being impacted by these EMF energies and may not realize we have symptoms. So what exactly is that to people listening?
Right, yeah. And what I do, I describe the biochemistry behind every single one of the symptoms in my EMF Freedom book because there's definitely people are being told they're crazy. You can't have the headache. You can't have the insomnia. This can't be caused by it. But there's an alteration at the cellular level that creates the headaches. Headaches are the primary symptom. Insomnia, people tell me they haven't slept in months. And heart palpitations, and then behavior disorders and irritability, very irritable, very difficult to control that. And we see this in flight attendants because they're exposed to so much radiation in the planes, and they become very irritable. But when they wear our dots, they're nice and calm and patient. It's amazing to see the difference.
Wow. It's almost like their company should buy the dots for them.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, they right now the problem is liability. They don't want to admit liability. So it's up to each one of us to start taking the protective measures for ourselves.
Now, are there more symptoms that are more common than others?
Absolutely. So the whole list causes ringing in the ears, and then vertigo, dizziness, nausea, blurred vision, fatigue, tiredness. That was what those women thought they were in menopause. And the food allergies, which I've already mentioned, and memory loss. It actually kills the cells in the brain related to memory. So it can cause a dementia, and in Korea, they're calling it digital dementia in the kids because Korea, they have so much technology, and the kids are losing their memory. And then nosebleeds, it's a hallmark symptom. And then the skin rashes that I had, it's tingling in the skin, itching, numbness to the arms and legs, and then nerve and muscle pain and muscle contractions. Just for no reason, your muscle contracts. And these are all the symptoms of Lyme disease. So many people are being diagnosed with Lyme disease today. When you look at these symptoms, it's probably electromagnetic radiation sensitivity because 70% of the people being diagnosed with Lyme say they have no memory of ever having a tick bite. And the tick bite is supposedly what creates the Lyme disease.
I just feel like, why are more people talking about this? My goodness, I'm so glad we're talking about this today. Are doctors aware of the situation? I mean, do they even know how to treat this if we were to go into a doctor to treat patients that are dealing with this?
A few do. I've been speaking at medical conferences on this for the last 3 years, and it's been amazing to see the transition of the doctors. They're sitting on the edge of their seats and going, wow, there's my patients I haven't been able to help, because this is not in their textbooks. So if they come and hear my lectures, they just get on board immediately because they've been frustrated. that they haven't been able to figure out the headaches. They do an MRI for a headache, can't find anything in the brain, and can't seem to solve the insomnia. But there's a definite change. Like the insomnia is low melatonin, and melatonin is our hormone that allows us to get into sleep and into a deep sleep. That's the reparative sleep. Well, just being exposed to a cell phone, your melatonin goes down, so you don't have enough melatonin to get into your deep sleep.
But if you have the dot on your phone and the phone's in the room, or you're okay.
Absolutely, right, yeah.
Oh, okay, because I know a lot of people will say, but I use my phone for my alarm clock.
Oh, well, yes, you can, but it's cumulative. So they put the lead apron on you in the dental chair because they know X-ray radiation is cumulative. It's all radiation. Electromagnetic radiation is cumulative just the same. So seeing people as sick as I'm seeing all over America, all over the world, I believe that people need to reduce every source they can, because you can control your home environment and your personal environment. You can't control the outside, where, if when you go into work, just all the people in the building where you work, and then all the cars today, all the electric and hybrid cars, and then the GPS. I have so many people who've called and said they can't get in the car with GPS. They get so sick.
Wow, I have not heard that. Now, so you're saying that even if you have a dot on your phone, you still don't want that phone where you're sleeping?
I don't recommend it.
Okay.
I don't want anybody to get as sick as I got. And yes, indeed, we're altering it to be human compatible. And yes, indeed, we get people able to hold their phone again, and their headaches go away and their insomnia go away. But there's no real reason to expose yourself when you can go to the a pharmacy or any type of a. I would like to say five and dime, but that's really dating me. So.
I was going to say, you're trying to say to go buy an alarm clock, because you could just go to like Target or something, right?
Yeah, right, Target, yeah. It's a small battery-operated alarm clock, because you really don't want radiation in your room where you're sleeping, because that's when your body can repair. And if there's radiation around you, your body doesn't repair as well.
What about the televisions in the room?
I highly recommend getting them out.
But what about for those people? Let's talk to those people, though, that, we got to take it one step at a time, right? Like they might not get those televisions out of the room. They might not get their cell phones out of the room. What do we recommend to those families? Would it be can you put dots on the television? Can you put dots? Absolutely. Can you put extra dots on the phone? I mean, if you put 2 dots, would that be better than 1? I mean, I know it sounds silly, but I really don't know, so I'm asking.
Right, yeah. The smart dot set, we now have this combination. We call them smart dots for the smartphones, smart TVs, the dash of your car, anything that's got the smart technology. And they do work very well. People don't understand how toxic televisions are. One of my symptoms before I started wearing the dots was if my husband turned the TV on in the next room, so quite a ways away, my skin would actually open up and just start hemorrhaging.
Wow.
And we had a biological building inspector with his very expensive meter measure our TV, and it went down to 0. And he goes, okay, Elizabeth, you can sit 2 more feet back here and you'll be fine. And I couldn't even be in the next room because the meter isn't as sensitive as our body.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, so now you said people go from, doctor to doctor when we were talking before about, misdiagnosis of Lyme disease, for example. Mm-hmm. But what they're really EMF sensitivities. So what do we do if we go to the doctor, we tell them we think it's an EMF sensitivity, and they kind of look at us like we're crazy?
I know. I'm on the 3rd edition of my EMF Freedom book simply because I kept adding and I rearranged to make it more convincing because so many women have called me, my husband thinks I'm crazy or my doctor thinks I'm crazy. And this book absolutely just lays it all out. In fact, Dr. Stephen Sinatra, I don't know if you know of him or your listeners. He's a cardiologist, and his endorsement of it, I'll just read it, it's very brief. ElizabethPlourde is a scientist. She has written an extraordinary book on the dangers of EMF and electrosmog originating from cordless phones, cellular phones, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, etc. For those who question the validity of the science regarding unseen forces, this is the book for you. It is highly referenced, scientific, and absolutely convincing. It is a must-read.
Well, that's a great endorsement, absolutely.
So I wrote it this way so you could hand it to the doctor, you can hand it to your husband. Or some husbands, they're sick and the wife's not. So the husband can hand it to his wife. Because I go through absolutely every symptom. You know, why the heart palpitations, why the muscle contractions.
And it's basically showing you, when you go down that list, like, hey, wait a second, I go to the doctor and they tell me not to worry, or they tell me to reduce caffeine, or they tell me, you know, whatever that might be. And this is something that people really need to look at. So what type of symptoms are people developing that have not been associated with constant cell phone use and Wi-Fi radiation immersion?
I don't quite understand the question.
Oh, sure. So what types of symptoms are people developing that maybe that have not been associated? Like maybe they're not using a cell phone all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're not always around Wi-Fi all the time, but because you're talking about there's like televisions and there's, you know, you even talked about the refrigerator. Like I never would have in a million years thought about a refrigerator, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so are they developing symptoms even around things that don't have anything to do, even in today's world, that don't have anything to do with cell phones or Wi-Fi?
Right, yes. So I've had people call and say they can't turn on their stove. They get sick just turning on their electric stove. And we get their dot on the stove and then they can use it. But can't be around lights, can't be around electric lights. These new compact fluorescent light bulbs, the fluorescent frequency is much more harmful than the old-fashioned incandescent bulbs. And so I have people call, and they can't have a light bulb on in their house anywhere. They get so sick.
Wow. So I'm thinking of people like when my grandmother was alive, like she didn't have Wi-Fi in the house, right? She didn't have a cell phone, but that didn't mean that she wasn't exposed to EMF radiations, you know, still, because you know, she still had all the other stuff you talked about. So that, to me, that's something really to people to think about. Because often when I think about, you know, things that are, quote-unquote, aren't good for us, you know, we all know that the cell phone is not the best thing, but we kind of poo-poo it, or we kind of just don't think about it because we want the convenience, right? And so when you're listening to what you're talking about, that's a really big deal. But, you know, honestly, I would have never, and of course we've all heard of microwaves. Like I don't use a microwave anymore. Haven't used microwave for probably 13 years, right? But, you know, I never heard of the refrigerator. I never heard of, you know, the electric meters and things like, or even when you talked about the electric cars, I never would have thought of that. So I think that the world we're creating for ourselves is really, really a toxic world. It's not just the pollution. It's now, you know, the traditional pollution we think of. This is a whole new level of pollution that no one's talking about.
That's right. Yeah, it's an unauthorized planetary experiment because we weren't asked if we wanted this. And there's nowhere to go on the globe anymore to escape it because even the satellites are beaming down microwaves. There's 2 cities, one in France and one in Italy, where people have gone who are so sick as I was before I found these dots and was able to get back into society. And they go there and there's no electromagnetic radiation. They even put a screen up somehow to block the satellite microwaves coming down.
Wow. I just don't understand why we're not talking about this more, like, on the news. Like, it's so crazy to me.
I know.
It's just insane.
The thing is, because I have been doing so much work and realizing that who are the people supporting the television stations? It's the pharmaceuticals and the cell phone companies. So they're the ones that are supporting, putting on the advertisements, and they don't really want much of this out there.
Now, is there a connection, you think, between, like, the people we're seeing with cancers and, you know, is there proof that EMF radiation is causing this, do you think?
Absolutely. The cancers are just So the diseases that we're seeing today, there's no doubt about the cancers and infertility and miscarriages, no doubt about that, and the allergies, and then autoimmune diseases like multiple sclerosis and Alzheimer's, and absolutely autism too. I saw the connection when I looked at the biochemistry and looked at the symptoms that our autistic children are demonstrating. There's a definite connection. EMF can cause these symptoms. So there's no doubt. And the cancers, I do hold 1-hour talks just on the changes at the cellular level that electromagnetic radiation causes that are a total setup for cancer development.
Wow. And where do people find them? You were talking about you had some videos and stuff. Are there videos out there for people to look at with you?
There are. I've done some videos that are on YouTube.
Okay.
And
so they could probably just search your name and Google it, and they could find
right,
it. And and for those that are listening, if you do have the Hope Workbook, all of her information will be in there as well. So now, are children and babies more vulnerable to the harms of radiation? That we're basically bringing into this world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a huge cancer clinic that sells our dots to their patients because they know they strengthen the patients. And if you already have cancer, you're more susceptible. It's the best thing is to strengthen your body by using our dots. But one of the doctors there, when I was making delivery one time, she told me, you will not believe the number of 2-year-olds we're seeing with cancers since the electric smart meters went into the county.
Wow. That's scary.
It is, and it makes sense. So their skulls are thinner, they have more fluid in their brain, which makes them more susceptible to the EMF radiation, and more rapidly dividing DNA because they're growing very rapidly, and that rapidly dividing DNA is very impacted. These radiations break DNA. They break single and even double-stranded DNA.
My goodness, I just feel like this is definitely an epidemic, and it's actually causing the epidemics that are happening. It's just insane. I just can't believe we're not talking about this more. So do you believe what we're seeing around the country is the number of children being identified having on an autism spectrum disorder? Do you feel that this is connected to cell phone use or increased radiation exposure?
Absolutely, I do. And the problem in trying to identify what is the cause, there's not one cause, and that's the problem. Because when you look at the biochemistry of all the things in our environment today that weren't there 60 years ago, 70 years ago, we've got the pesticides. We've got very toxic pesticides that are disrupting our biochemistry, and the GMO foods, which we don't metabolize the same. It's really not allowing us to have as much nutrient in our food. And then the sunscreens. My third book was on sunscreens and the damage they cause. I saw the autism connection when I wrote that book 7 years ago. I was just horrified when I saw it. And it's being absolutely played out, more conclusive proof all the time for the biochemical connection that I saw between the sunscreens and the alteration. Because the woman puts it on her body and then it goes into the fetus. The other problem is that the tight junction cells, they're called tight junction cells in our brain and our gut lining and in our placenta to prevent toxic agents getting into the brain or into the blood or into the baby. That's a hole. These radiations, I liken them to are being machine gunned. They're putting holes in every cell membrane, and they're putting holes in all these protective barriers, and they're no longer protective. So any toxins in the mother can get into the baby, disrupting fetal development.
And what do we say to people that are sitting here listening going, I don't know if I believe in this EMF radiation. I don't know if it's really harmful, because why would they allow us to have electric cars? And why would they allow us to have cell phones? Like, why would they put smart meters in? Because obviously there's other people that know about this. But why would they do this?
I know. I looked high and low for any study of putting a human in an electric or hybrid car to see the effect, I could not find any study. I don't know if they did it, but I couldn't find any evidence of it. And my connection that I see is I do a whole history and workup when people call me for consults, and they're so sick as I was. And I've been able to identify that degree of disability, people have been driving a hybrid or electric car for a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
So it's the cumulative while they're sitting there driving it. And one of our doctors said he was mortified because he thought his kids were just falling asleep in the back seat of his hybrid car. He didn't realize they were absolutely becoming unconscious from sitting on top of the batteries.
Wow. Okay, that's kind of scary. Very scary. Now, what can we say to what do we do now that we have all these cell phones and electronics, on a practical side? Because clearly we're not going to give up our ability to be connected for the most of us, right? Are there any solutions? And is a hard line better than the cell phone? I mean, I imagine there must be still radiation in the hard lines, right?
But not near the degree, and it's not the wireless. And yes, we have corded landline phones. Well, they're required for doing the phone interviews that I do, the radio interviews. And we have hardwired Wi-Fi. And we actually got rid of our television set. We thought, why bother? Why expose? And definitely get rid of cordless phones. Cordless phones are very toxic. Same frequencies a microwave oven. And the thing that staggers me is that the Navy has known for over 50 years, more than that even, that the radar in the ships caused problems. The radar in the ship caused cataracts, caused a lot of health problems in the sailors. And our Wi-Fi now, including the smart meters and including cordless phones, and including the wireless that are in all these internet cafes and all the buildings, the radar range is 1 to 100 gigahertz. These are all in that range. We're sitting in radar.
Wow, and we wonder why there's cancer and all these different autoimmune issues that are popping up every which way.
Absolutely.
We wonder, even the dogs and the cats, that popped in my mind. I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like, I don't remember being a child and knowing all these dogs and cats were getting cancer. And it feels like every which way I turn, somebody's telling me that their dog or cat has cancer. And I just don't remember that being a kid growing up.
Absolutely. And we now promote our biodots for the dogs and cats, because they need protection too. Their bodies are smaller. So, yes, they definitely are getting the cancers that we never used to see. And,
wow.
And the other thing that, and one of the reasons we started doing that is my menopause consults. During the consult, the woman is distraught because she just lost her dog or cat to cancer. And it was so many of them that's why we started looking at, well, golly, they're being impacted by the radiation too. So, but
has anyone ever done a study? I was at my son's horseback riding lesson about a few weeks ago, and we noticed all these birds, and there's a telephone wires every which way, because they always put the therapies in the worst spots, because it must be the cheapest land, right? Mm-hmm. And for the poor horses, I thought about. But I remember being a kid, knowing that you never wanted to live near telephone wires.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And so I always wonder about the horses and the people that work there every day. But what we noticed as a group, we looked up and we saw all these birds sitting. All the birds sit on the telephone wires. Has anyone ever done a study to see if any of those crows? I mean, they happen to be all black crows that we saw. But does anyone ever done a study to see if they had cancer or any type of effects from being they sit on those poles for so long, the wires themselves?
I don't know, but wildlife is being impacted. It definitely causes miscarriages. I've got an incredible picture in my EMF Freedom book of a rat uterus exposed to only 2 cell phones for only 10 days, for only 30 minutes. I mean, nothing compared to the 24 hours a day that our humans are being impacted by. And it looks like a dead tree. I mean, it's impacted. And animals are miscarrying in the wild. And they're also fighting. one of these studies, this irritability, it destroys the cells in the brain that make GABA, and GABA is a gamma aminobutyric acid, and that is our calming neurotransmitter. It's over 50% of our brain's transmitters, but it's what keeps us calm. And we're losing 2 cells in the brain. They're being killed completely that make GABA. So we're all GABA deficient. So the whole society, the whole world is much more irritable and out of control, just because of the exposure. And one of the studies said that storks in the wild, they would fight so hard over the twigs to build their nest that they would never get the nest built.
Oh gosh. Now what about you? We talked about, there's practical sides. There's less things with radiation. So let's just go down a couple of things to switch out, right? So if you have a cell phone, which I don't know anybody that really doesn't have a cell phone anymore. Mm-hmm. We talked about you can put the dots on there. If you have a child, you can buy, different types of bracelets, or, you even have these little chain things that go on the coat, like the zipper, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And you can even put it in their pocket, or I'm sure there's other avenues to make suggestions, and then everybody in the house should be wearing one of the little dots, whether it be in jewelry or pocket or what have you. You can put it on your televisions. You can put it on. It sounds like your hard line. Definitely, you could put it on your safe meter, the smart meters. Is there anything else that you should be putting it on? And is there a package thing where it's here's the whole home? I don't, honestly, I would have never thought if it was plugged into the wall, but I guess there's electricity, right? But I guess in my mind, I'm just thinking Wi-Fi, right? Things that are not plugged into the wall. And I think a lot of people probably think that. If you have a jacuzzi at your house, do you need to put one on your jacuzzi, kind of thing?
Yes, I definitely would. That's true. Well, in the radiation has never been good for us. It never has. In fact, in my research, I've been able to uncover that they electrified America in the 1930s. And in the 1930s, cancer was the number 8 leading cause of death. By the 1940s, it had moved up to the second cause of death. And I think it's because just the electricity alone, not all this Wi-Fi. So, and they've definitely identified that there's more leukemia around.
Is there clean electricity? Is that such a thing?
Not really, because the electricity itself is we're electromagnetic. Every cell in our body has an electromagnetic charge, and so you put out extraneous, non-human electromagnetic radiation. It impacts the body. It impacts every cell in the body. So this is something that, in fact, one of the quotes I have in my book is, perhaps it's a pity that Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, because it's such an impact on our body. So as far as other changes, definitely get rid of any cordless phones. The cordless phones are very, very toxic. I helped the whole family. They didn't even have cell phone service in their town, and yet all 7 kids were itching, and they had 5 cordless phones in the house. So just get rid of the 5 cordless phones, the itching stopped. Because it definitely causes itching.
If let's say a family can only pick in the beginning because, for whatever reason, is there, I don't know, is there 1 to 3 top things that you would do if those are the only things you could start with?
Wearing the biodot in some form, and we also have a baby dot, a baby mat that is in 100% organic cotton, multiple layers sewn together. There's no way the baby can get to the dot. It's washable, dryable. It should go in their bed, their crib, their car seat to protect their developing brain. So, and be around it 24 hours a day. So sleep with these dots. So this is like eating the right food for your energy field, like eat the right food for your physical body.
And so what steps, would you, I guess, provide for us to be symptom-free completely? Is that just, I almost feel like we need to, get some type of tent and just, put over our house with, a whole bunch of, the dots built into the tent, but clearly that's not realistic, right?
Well, there are some people who are recommending painting the entire house, painting entire rooms with paint that blocks EMF. The problem is it's also blocking life force. It's not just blocking EMF. And they're not warning the people, don't use a cell phone or don't use the television inside this room because the radiation just bounces around inside. It makes it far worse. I've had people call me just desperate after a building inspector recommended painting their bedroom and didn't tell them. And boy, this is multiple people across the nation I've been seeing this in. There's just nothing left in them by the time they call. They have no energy because they're being so hit. Plus, 15 years ago or so, the only answer was a Faraday cage, and so people would sleep inside a Faraday cage on their bed. But that also, again, blocks your life force energy. So being able to strengthen your energy field, like eating the right food. And then I also recommend sleeping grounded. We have grounding sheets for every size bed and grounding computer mats to put your feet on while you're working on the computer. And that grounding, it's all oxidation damage, whether it's solar radiation that's causing oxidation damage, which is repaired by antioxidants. And that I have a whole list of all the antioxidants proven to protect from solar radiation. But they're also seeing it's the same things that protect from the electromagnetic radiation because it's oxidation damage also. So anything that you can do in your diet, I have a whole list on my sunscreensbiohazard.com, a whole list that you can get of all the foods. I was amazed at the amount of work that had been done. All your purples and reds and deep green leafy vegetables, all your spices. Your spices are very antioxidant. And so I wonder over the years, all the spices that were used in wintertime cooking, we really needed them because people weren't getting outside and getting health. And so they really needed to bring in the antioxidants. So it truly is amazing to me of how nourishing all this is and how reparative. So as well as changing lifestyle of making being outdoors, playing games outside, taking the kids outside, going on hikes, having long picnics, sitting on the ground with natural fibers, cotton, linen, wool, anything that's natural. The synthetics attract electricity. And so you want to allow your body to have the chance to do the repair it needs to do. We are awesomely designed to repair. I am in awe of the human body, which is why I became a clinical laboratory scientist so long ago, because we are designed to repair, and the body will repair. But grounding is one of the best things you can do. So I sleep grounded and then get to the beach whenever I can, away from people, because sitting there surrounded by cell phones doesn't help much. And just, be on the ground on cotton blanket or cotton towel.
So when you say grounding, for those that don't really quite understand what you're saying, can you just give a quick description of what that means?
Okay, so what happens is the damage, it creates unpaired electrons, the damage that's coming in, and that unpaired electron is pinging around inside your body like a pinball machine, causing damage. And when you ground, you're bringing up the Earth's electrons and allows those unpaired electrons to get paired, so they're no longer damaging.
Gotcha. And so now what do we do if we want to tell, we're trying to tell about our symptoms to our spouse, or even, especially for our kiddos? Like, let's say we're looking at our kiddo and going, I really think this might be it. How do we help them understand, like our significant other or our doctor, that these symptoms are real and they're here?
Yes, it is. It is difficult because it's been rolled out with no warning, no telling you the truth about what these do. There's been some people who've gotten out of the industry just due to guilt because they finally realized what they're doing and they couldn't be part of it anymore. It would depend on the age, and trying to bring in substitutes for younger kids. More toys that are more involved that they can get their hands into. rather than sit there and look at a screen, something that will trigger their imagination. It's very hard until we change the mindset in the world, because it's so accepted now. And it's just, my book, I really tried to lay it all out to describe why the nosebleeds, why the headaches. It's very simple. We've got pictures of how all the blood cells clump together. The blood cells have to be all by themselves in order to deliver oxygen to all the tissues. And the change of radiation makes them all clump together. And all clumped together, they can't deliver oxygen, and that's the headache. It's the same as a high-altitude headache. You go up, there's not enough oxygen in the air. Exact same principle as to why we're getting headaches.
Wow.
So it's very simple explanations. Adults can understand my book to understand why these things are happening. I've got the explanation as to why the itchy, bloody skin, rashes all over the body in there too. Because the skin has mast cells that contain, so those are getting holes in it, and then granules inside that cell that contain histamine and heparin, and those get holes in them, so the histamine leaks and the heparin leaks, so you itch and bleed and itch and bleed. And it's very simple explanations.
It just seems like I keep seeing this over and over, but it's like amazing to me that not more of us are talking about this. So now you were telling us to consider what we bring in our homes and our offices and, everywhere we live and are about that may affect our family's health. So it sounds like the more we unplug, the healthier we'll be. But, again, I feel like I still want to give to that mom that's listening right now. Like, she might be thinking, are all of these dots, because I've seen these dots like sometimes I've seen them at just the electronic kind of store, right? Or like it's like a little kiosk, I should say, at the mall. How do we know? Are they all the same? Like, can you buy any one? It doesn't matter, or are they developed differently?
They're very different, because I had tried almost everything on the market as I got sicker and sicker and sicker and realized they didn't work. And when I found these people in Europe, these were not here available in America. And so I had them send it over here from Europe. And when they turned my life around so dramatically, and I've seen them turn so many people across the world around dramatically, it's tragic that so much is sold that doesn't work. And it's given dots a bad name. They say, oh, it don't work. And they don't. And that's the sad part. These are called harmonizers. They're actually changing the radiation to be human compatible. Many of them that don't work, they're absorbers or filters or blockers, and those don't work. And you put a blocker on a cell phone, and that cell phone has to power up in order to reach the cell tower, and it makes it much more toxic. And I think it's one reason I got so sick also is that I was using one of those for almost 2 years until I couldn't even hold the cell phone anymore. I turn it on and get itchy bitty sores erupting all over my ankle like mosquito bites. It was just really painful. So tragically, it's hard to know. I did resent all my symptoms until I realized they were a blessing to help me know what does work. And I have people calling me saying they've spent $1,000, $3,000, $8,000 on things, and they're still very, very sick. And it's really a tragedy that those are being sold.
I definitely think it gives a bad name because, and it's hard because if you don't have symptoms, you still need to protect yourself and your family so that you can be the healthiest version. It's kind of like how I think of it. You take a multivitamin, you don't always know exactly, what's happening in your body because you don't feel any different. You just feel the same, but you know that the multivitamin's helping you, right? To me, it's something similar. Like if you don't have symptoms or you don't recognize the symptoms, maybe that's a better thing to say, and you put the dot on your phone and you get the dots, for the jewelry and whatever else you decide to do, you may not even see a difference right away or maybe never notice it, but you are actually going in the step of no different as anything else you do to take care of yourself. Would you agree with that?
That's true. And it's hard to understand when you can't see these radiations. how they're impacting every cell of your body. And there's nowhere to go anymore. There is absolutely nowhere to go anymore on the planet. Google's even launched balloons over Brazil to allow Brazil to get wireless internet. So they're bringing it down from balloons in the sky. Wow. So there's nowhere to go to get away from the radiation. And it's, I guess, reading my book, the reason I did 3 editions is I wanted to make it totally convincing to get people to understand. We've got pictures in there that show the damage, and it's staggering. It really is staggering that.
Well, now I feel like everyone's listening going, all right, I got to do something, approximately. And, if you were to just get a dot for your phone, let's say they start even just there. Let's get them starting somewhere and then continue, clearly, as they learn more and more and get your book. And how much is a dot for the phone?
It's $49.95 just for the phone.
So basically for $49.95, do these things ever expire?
They tested them at 12 years. The company making them is 16 years old. They tested them at 12 years and found no diminishing in what they do. The technology should not diminish. There's no reason for it to. But they did put 2 years expiration on the cell phone packaging simply because they're made in England, requires an expiration date, and also because they're upgrading phones so rapidly. The iPhone 6 and now the iPhone 7, it's just constantly. They feel that the technology they put into these dots will handle that, but they still want people to think, well, maybe in 2 years, my new phone might need to have a different type of a dot. And a
worst case scenario, you're paying $25 a year for your phone.
Exactly.
That's and regardless if you see the benefits or you don't see the benefits, just even think about when you're pregnant. I remember, my doctor saying, "Don't stand in front of the microwave." I remember that.
Absolutely.
But yet that's really what got me thinking. Well, wait a second. If I'm pregnant and you're telling me I have to stand in front of the microwave, what is the difference if I'm not pregnant and using this microwave? And that was a moment for me that was just kind of like I don't need to use microwave. Clearly, we don't understand at that moment. I didn't know exactly all the negativities against it. I just knew that it didn't make sense to me that I couldn't stand in front of my microwave pregnant, but I could stand in front of it when I wasn't pregnant because I felt like I'm still getting radiation in some way, And so I think if people start thinking of it in just common sense ways, we all have felt our phones get super hot. We've all felt our hands go numb, from holding the phones. If you're anybody like me, you've been on your phone a lot. When I met Elizabeth, we were over dinner. It wasn't even like they were trying to sell me anything. I was like, I think it was 20 minutes in. I'm like, where are these dots? I must have one because it just made sense to me. And it was just something so simple that I could do just to take a proactive approach in my own health and my son's health. I definitely have a long ways to go regarding my home, but, I've done the little steps with making sure my son's wearing something and making sure I'm wearing something and making sure the basics of our phones are. Definitely I still need to do the iPads and learn more and more as we go. But I know if anyone is like me listening, for me, I like steps that I need to take. And so I think those are the first steps, and then you can continue to, if you are all gung-ho, I know that you guys can get a hold of Elizabeth, and you can go to her website, and you have 3 websites that I have listed here. Is that EMFfreedom.com, smartdots.us, and sunscreenbiohazard.com, and those are always somebody can find you, correct?
Right, that's true. Yeah, and I would really love to work with people. I consult, like I said, all over the nation, all over the world. I've been amazed at the countries who call desperate because this is not in medical textbooks because this didn't exist, and now here it is, and so it's very rewarding to be able to help people who have been suffering, and it's very easy to help. And so I'm glad to do consults on the phone too.
And Dr. Plourde, how much do you charge for a consult typically?
I charge for electromagnetic radiation. I charge $100.
So basically, for $100, somebody can learn how to basically take the steps to a healthier life. And I really think that our kiddos are here to teach us not only how to help them, but to also help the entire family. This is something the entire family needs to do. But honestly, if it means that our children will have less symptoms of a headache or maybe, aggravation, many of our children have limited language or no language. They can't tell us that they're feeling what they're feeling, but they're still feeling it. And so if these are little things that we could do just to, at least check that box off that, okay, we've done that part, now what else do we need to do, kind of thing. I think it's an easy thing to do. Do you have...
Absolutely. And I just wanted to say that there's studies that prove the electromagnetic radiation harms the part of the brain of language development.
And that makes, and again, I've talked to a lot of people, and a lot of people, even when I talk about it, and I just know it on a very basic level, just from our conversations, but they kind of just look at me and kind of almost like, kind of just, I don't want to say ignore me, but kind of disregard the actual safety of, like, that it's not that big of a deal. And it really is a big deal. And I think that it's better to be proactive in this than to wait 20 years and go, gosh, if I would have just, done that, if I would have just done this, especially we want to be around for our kids for a long time, even as parents. And even if your child doesn't have a cell phone, I'm pretty sure you do. And just that little thing, I mean, I feel better knowing that it's on my phone. I feel better than knowing that it's on my son's father's phone, and I don't even think about it. Like, once I put it on that day, I never thought about it again. And I'll think about it, I guess, in, another year and a half or so when I should buy a new one.
and another thing that we do is we turn the electricity off. We turn our circuit breakers off to the back part of our house where we sleep. So you're getting very quiet, because even the wiring in the walls puts out radiation. So the quieter you can keep your your sleeping environment, it'll allow your body to do the repair it needs to do.
You guys must get the best sleep. And it's funny because both you and your husband are extremely calm. And I have to believe it's because of all the work you've done in your own house.
Well, it is interesting. I just, when we listen to the news, we're going, wow, radiation. I mean, it's so obvious once you know. And we did a flight back. I spoke at a doctor's symposium in Florida. On the flight back, all the flight attendants were so irritable. And I've flown for decades in my business profession, and I've never seen the irritability of the flight attendants ever like they were. And there was one who was very, very calm, very patient. She was so unique. My husband and I said, we've got to get her name and tell the airlines they've got a golden employee here. She came down the aisle. She saw my biodot, and she goes, oh, I have one of there. It's right here. Right. So we believe she was staying calm because of wearing the biodot. Yeah, we really do.
Isn't that interesting? I'm hoping more and more, especially we definitely want, like, the airline people to be calm.
That's true. But we also know that it helps reduce the number of violent outbursts in autistic children too. So,
and that's what I'm saying. The very basics is we know where we can actually see the total change. Why would we not? Like, and again, this isn't something that's going to hurt your child. I'm always about options, And again, this is just another option, and it's another option off what we call the menu of looking and learning new things that you probably didn't know about before. But I'm a big believer. If it's something that can't hurt my child, I should at least try it, and especially if it's not something, it's not like I'm buying. The price tag is not the price tag of a car, or a home.
Oh no.
But really, it is the price tag of your life and your well-being, is what it sounds like. And so, if it's something so simple you can do, why not?
Yeah, and it really is cheaper than your cell phone per month that you're paying for, and you don't have to keep rebuying it. I mean, the necklaces I have, we found these 4 years ago, and I still have a 4-year-old necklace. So it's really a one-time investment. It's not as if you have to keep buying it every month.
Yeah, I feel like it's just an easy thing to look into. And you have, and where do people find your books? Do they go on your websites? Are they on Amazon, or where do they get them?
Either. Yeah, they're on our websites, and then you can go to Amazon too. And we do have the Kindle electronic edition.
But as long as you have the dot on there, you're probably okay.
Right. That helps a lot. It really does. But I've gotten reacquainted with the library. I had to before I found the biodot, and I couldn't be around it. So my only recreation was books until I found these dots, and I could get back on the computer and get back on the cell phone. One of the things I wanted to say about cell phones is you can get cell phones that you can take the battery out of, and that's what we do. Because the radiations bounce around inside the car. They bounce around inside the metal tube. And so because there's no more payphones anymore, we just keep our cell phone in the car with the battery out just in case we need it for an emergency.
Oh, okay. Well, so we know not to get a hold of you on your cell phone. I'm just kidding.
That's true.
So basically, guys, the website, again, is emffreedom.com. Smart Dots, that's plural, so smartdots.us, and sunscreensbiohazard.com. Dr. Plourde, it has been such a pleasure talking with you. I always learn something. And, what final message would you have for a parent out there that just might feel a little hopeless? Maybe they don't have a lot of funds, they just feel a little scared right now. What message do you have for them?
That I believe everything's repairable, and we're living in such a toxic environment. Learning all the toxins and removing them from the environment, then the body will repair. Absolutely, it will. For me to be able to be in a computer 18 hours a day with no problems, compared to not even be able to be in the same room with one, the body will definitely repair. And I'm so glad you're hearing this, and I'm so glad that Kristen is providing you with this type of information, because it's crucial. And I've seen the changes in autistic kids, and these do help. And it's just part of the program that you can implement, and it's a very inexpensive thing, probably the least inexpensive thing that you've ever done as far as, helping your children feel better. And my heart goes out to all of you, because I know what you're going through. And it's awareness and spreading this. Please tell everybody the electromagnetic radiations are not harmless. The sunscreens are not harmless. They're actually causing the melanoma, causing skin cancers. They've increased rapidly since sunscreens were introduced, and they're causing incredible biochemical harm to our bodies and the development of our children. So do take a look at that website too.
Absolutely, guys. And it's just, another thing to put in your toolbox to go, okay, I heard about it, and now it's up to you guys to investigate and research and make your own decision. But, all we can do is at least spread the message of, knowledge that we learn about. And our kiddos really are teaching us the way. I really believe that, because I can tell you I wasn't that mom that was trying to learn more. I was just trying to get through life, and I thought we were doing a pretty good job until autism hit us. And then all of a sudden I had to learn all these things about diets and foods and pesticides and the natural cleaners, and the list went on and on and on. And I've been in the community for 13 years, and I'm continuing to learn all the time. I just met you, I think that was probably about 5 or 6 months ago, right?
Right, yeah.
And I've learned from that moment. And so, again, I'm very excited that there's still stuff coming out that can teach us to take better care of not just our children, but also ourselves. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
For being here and helping our families. I greatly appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Absolutely. You're doing a great job, a great service, a very necessary service. So thank you for what you're doing.
And thank you all for listening.